Now, in addition to chaining patterns together, we can make songs out of our multiple patterns. And the song feature is extremely powerful because if I want certain patterns to repeat, I can just tell them to repeat. If I want to mute certain sounds out of a specific pattern, I can mute that within the different song rows. I can do the same thing with transposing. So this gives us a lot of flexibility without needing to duplicate a bunch of patterns to achieve our result. Now, I've made it so that my pattern G06 is playing all the sounds in my sequence. And what I want to do is basically use this one pattern, and by muting and deactivating and looping and transposing, I want to make this into more of a song structure. So my song button is here. If I press this, this activates the song mode, but this doesn't allow me to actually edit how the song is playing. So what I need to do first is hold function, press song, and this brings me to the song edit mode. Here we can enter various rows, and as we enter more rows, the song mode will play each row in sequence. The first row here that doesn't have any number, it just has 2 dashes, that's known as the scratch row. When we're creating chains, they usually end up right in that scratch row. Here where it says 0, 0, this is going to be the beginning of my song. And as I said, G6 is a sequence that has all of my sounds in it. With song mode active, it's not going to play this pattern indefinitely and keep looping it. It's going to play it for the length of the pattern. And if there's no row underneath it, it's just going to simply stop. All right. Now let's say that I want this to play for 4 bars instead of just 1. Well, there's a couple ways I could achieve that. I could create a chain here if I wanted to. I can move my cursor over, and then I can simply select the pattern, hold G, press 6, and now I have 2 instances of G6 playing on this row. And if I play it, it's the first one, there's a second one, and then we stop. Now, there's a more efficient way to do this, so I'm going to go ahead and just delete. Let's see, clear this chain. There we go. Function clear. All right, so the first row is going to be G06. That's my sequence with everything. But I'm going to move my arrow over here, and this determines how many times that pattern is going to play. I want this to play 4 times. So now if I play this, all right, so now we get that playing 4 times. So far, so good. Now what I'm thinking is that I'd like for the first row in the song to just be the arpeggiated rhythm that's playing on track 1. So I need to mute tracks 2, 3, and 4. I can do that by simply selecting the track, hold function, and press the track button. And now if we look under here, this is showing me which tracks are going to be active and which tracks are muted. So I'm going to do that for 3 and 4. And let's go ahead and play this now. All right, so I want to enter another row after this and maybe have that row bring the drums in. So I'm going to hold function and press yes, and that creates another row. Now this next row is starting with A01. That's not the pattern I want to play. In fact, all I need is to have every single row play G06, and I can just mute things accordingly. So let me go back here. I'm going to hold G, press 6. That's inserted into that row. And I want to make sure that this is going to also repeat for 4 bars. There we go. And in this row, I'm going to bring in the drums, but I'm not going to bring in the bass or anything else. So let me make sure that this is selected. Now, if you look over here, the row that's selected is the first one, and we can see these tracks are muted. If I select the second row, these tracks are no longer muted. So we can do this on a row by row basis. The second row, I'm going to bring in the drums, which are on track 3. So I'll make sure track 2 and track 4 are muted. Now let's go up to my first row here. I'm going to hit yes to make sure that's where we start. I will press play. All right, so now we're getting somewhere. So I think at this point, what I'll do, function yes, to add another row. This row will also be G6. I will hit yes when that's selected, so I'm on that row. At this point, I think I'm going to mute the arpeggiated rhythm. I'm going to make sure track 4 stays muted. Track 2 is my bass, so in this row, the bass and the drums will play. Now, if you just want to hear one particular row, all you have to do is just select it and press play. If you want to start your song at the very beginning, just double tap stop and you'll go to the first row. Now, before I do that, let me make sure that I have this repeating the appropriate number of times. This is going to play for 4 bars. And again, that's just the bass and the drums. All right. I'm going to hold function and yes to insert one more row down here. G6. And in this row, make sure that's selected. I'm going to make it so that the arpeggiated rhythm stays out, but we're going to bring in the synth from track 4. And again, we're going to make sure that this repeats for 4 bars. Actually, you know what? I think at this point, I'm going to make this play twice. Because what I want to do now is I'm going to take this same row, and instead of creating a brand new one, we're going to copy this. So function, copy. And then function, yes. Function, paste. So now we pasted that chain here. So it's going to have the same tracks active and muted. I'm going to make this play twice. But what I'm going to do now, I'm going to transpose this. Now, before I do this, I need to make sure that these tracks are going to respond to the transpose function. So let me get out of this song edit mode really quickly. If I hold the transpose button, I can see that none of these tracks are currently set to react to the transpose parameter. Before I do that, let me make sure that transpose is set to 0 semitones. And I'm going to enable transpose for these 3 melodic tracks. Again, track 3 is just playing drums. I don't need to transpose that. With that done, let me go back into my song edit menu. And this row, I want to be 3 semitones higher than the previous pattern. So I'm going to hold transpose here. This is where we're currently at. And I'm going to transpose this up by 3 semitones. So if I play this pattern now. All right, that's what we got. So let's go back to the first row here. I double tap stop. Let's just play this in order just to hear what's happening with our song as it evolves. And what I think would be really interesting, actually, I'm going to make this just repeat once. And we're going to take this row again, function copy, function yes to create a new row, function paste to paste this here. And I'm going to transpose this one up. Let's see, make sure that that's selected. We went up 3 semitones with this one. I'm going to go up 7 semitones with the next one here. So if we start from here, and now I'm going to enter another row. And in this row here, we're going to go with G6 again. G6. And I think I'll have everything except for the bass play. So we're going to mute out the bass for this particular row. And I'm going to have this play for 4 bars. And I think the last thing we'll do after this row, we're going to go ahead and end our song. So I'll create another row. Function yes. Once again, G6. This row will repeat for 4 bars like this. And this will just be the first track. So I'm going to make sure I'm selecting this particular row function, and I will mute everything else.